Okay. Hi, I'm Ben Laing, and welcome to Ben's Business Podcast, episode number 9. Today, I've got my guest, Richard Moore, with me. And Richard Moore is a London-based startup consultant, sales coach, and investor. Welcome, Richard.
Hi, Ben. Thanks so much for having me. It's very kind of you to have me on the show.
It's good to have you here. And we met at Edinburgh University. Good while ago now.
We first met there, and but I think we'd been online together for a little bit, hadn't we?
Yes, and then we've connected online. Helped Richard with the development of his membership website, where he's got 2 courses on there just now. He's got the basics of sales, and he's also got Monetize You, which is they're both courses that he's put together, put all his knowledge together, packaged it, and there's a course on his website, therichardmoore.com. We've actually got a special offer today for the viewers watching and the listeners to get 15% off both those courses. So you can find them at therichardmoore.com, and I'll tell you the exact links later on. But Richard, would you like to tell us who Richard Moore is?
Yeah, so you've done a great job of explaining anyway, but thank you. So I mostly work with startups. As Ben rightly said, I invest in some of them. I always was keen on doing that, and I thought the best way to know how to invest in companies is to really know the people running them. So as someone who coaches or guides or mentors or trains or whatever, a business owner or an entrepreneur or whatever guys it might be, you get to really know the person. And if they're a good enough guy, then of course it might be that if it's interesting enough and it feels like the numbers are good, then I'll go and invest in it. So that's good fun to do. But in the main, I'm doing a lot of guiding people in those exciting early steps. When you've got a great person with a great idea, and it's like, how do you do that commercializing, and how do you take it to market? And it's on the back of basically the career I had in London, which was marketing and sales. And I'm very, very fortunate because there was this sliding doors moment in like 2002 when I first joined, and there was 17 of us, and they said, right, we're a media business. We're going to be selling marketing and advertising. There is a print division and there is a digital division. So imagine this is online back then. Yeah. And let's just halve the room. So you guys go on digital, you just go on print. So there's no determining factors other than where I was sitting. And I luckily fell on the side of websites. So I was selling advertising there. And it's great because that's really equipped me. I'm really glad I went through many years of selling and managing and listening to CEOs essentially as a consultant, but paid by the business and just simply listening to them saying, yeah, this is how I'm building my business right now. So through osmosis, I learned a huge amount, and it's just been really useful because now I can use it when I'm going back to businesses that are maybe more established, or of course helping those who are starting out. So that's kind of me commercially, but I'm also an avid reader, which is I think where we really connect, Ben. Yes. And I'm a big fan of content generation, so I do a lot of that and write. So there's a little bit of everything, but all in the general space of helping businesses grow aggressively, getting sales and marketing right as pretty much the main thrust.
Yes, and hence the reason getting yourself on here today, because that's really, like we discussed, the main focus of what the podcast is about is to help give people tips and advice on how to grow their business and generally startups. So you're absolutely ideal for this. That what we could also go into is maybe you told a story when I met at university, Edinburgh University. You were doing a speech, and I remember I was very impressed with your storytelling and how you ended up falling into starting your own businesses. Do you want to go into that? Also, there's another question I've got for you. I'll ask that after.
Okay. So how it was interesting because where do I start? So I decided to stop working a 9-to-5 job because I was becoming very successful, but it was at the expense of my soul. and sleep and health as well. So at one point I was clocking sustained 80-hour weeks. It wasn't like a one-off or something. It was for a period. And I was, I remember like we had a new child, and like I was being reintroduced to my own daughter each week. And it was just like, what am I doing here? I was getting up when everyone's asleep, getting home when everyone's asleep, calling home to my wife, sometimes saying, I'm just going to book a hotel and stay overnight around the corner from the office, because we were building, and like, you know, I was very much, there was just so much to do. And it was an impossible job. And eventually I was like, this can't be how it is, because whilst things are going very well, I'm also a bit of a pawn. And what I want to do is, rather than make like millions of pounds of sales, but watch most of it pass me by to the business, and I get my small bit. I want to go and do my thing. And it was always in me that I wanted to do my own thing, always. And I don't think I had a problem with authority, but I just wanted to be doing things my way. And I often looked at things and was like, well, I would like to do it this way, or I'd like to. So I was just run my own thing. And for many people, this will possibly resonate with your group, Ben. For many people, the biggest hurdle isn't if their business will be successful or not, or can they make some money? Because they could making money, as I'm showing in the Monetize You course, is actually very straightforward when you have the basic steps down. The limiting factor is, of course, fear. And so for me, it wasn't just, I wasn't like 24 with no responsibility. I had a mortgage. So there's properties involved, right? There's cars involved. There's a wife that didn't work. And so money had to come from somewhere. So it was like, whoa, this is going to be a big deal. But it was better than what I was doing, this idea of doing something else. And, you know, and so I decided to stop work and start Taekwondo academies, because I'd been training in Taekwondo since 1998. And teaching since about 2004. So I thought, well, why not? You know, that's a straightforward, accessible thing to do. It's something I'm pretty good at. And I just started. And the plan was, let me see if I can pay my mortgage by the end of the first year. But I actually did it within about 5 months. And it was going really well. Okay. But to support myself, I just did some more consulting with companies I'd worked with. And I was like, this is great. I love it. And they're all having great results as, you know, because of it. So I didn't shelve Taekwondo. I streamlined it, and I still do it. I mean, I even taught last night, but mostly then it was consulting. So in a very small nutshell, that's kind of what happened, with plenty in between. Yeah, so you did take a big risk then, because you had a mortgage and you had all of the responsibilities. Yeah. And what age were you around then? About 30. I think it was 30, 31. When you made that switch. Yeah. There was a bit, the thing is, it's difficult because I can't suggest this is easy, because it's not. There's a lot of work. And also, I totally appreciate that I was more equipped than many, because if you can imagine my career up until then, the employment I had was totally grooming me for building my own business, because I was exposed for a long amount of time to sales. You know, most of my working days for a few years was cold calling non-stop against targets. When I started work, Ben, I had a £15,000 basic. That was it. So that it was, I remember we were paid weekly, £246.88 was like what I got in my little pay slip. And you cannot live in London on that kind of money. So I had to make money. So it was forced on me. And so because I didn't quit, I stuck at it. I look back very, very romantically at my 20s, because I shut up and I worked my face off, and I went through so much abuse from myself, from the job, from working in sales, from having to hit commission, from having to hit targets and things like that. But it was worth it, because that pain made me come out the other end and say, I'm pretty good at selling, you know, and I understand marketing quite well and storytelling and things like that. And so I do appreciate that I was, you know what the short version is, it just made me feel, when I decided to go it alone, I was like, I back myself. Like, I totally back myself to be able to make the money and make it happen. That's the bit I know I do have, right? And the rest is just understanding platforms and how they work and algorithms and so on. Yeah. So
you had a lot of confidence, and you knew you were ready at that stage when you made that switch as well.
Yeah, I think to a degree, my wife was fantastic. She gave me a nudge. She was like, do it, you know, but what is it you want to do? And I'm like, I was going to be a flight instructor. I wanted to, you know, learn how to fly. I'd had some lessons, and I was like, I could go and teach people. Then I was like, no. And so maybe the taekwondo thing, I could just start like that. So I did. But there was no transition. It was just, let's do it.
Yeah.
And there was no discussion with myself of, oh my God, I wonder if this will work, or is it going to be okay? It's just like, there's no time for that. Do it. Yes. And don't question it. Just do.
Yes.
And that's what got me there. There was no dithering. It was from the first second, where's your customers coming from? And it's because that was drilled into me when I started, when I was working in
the team. So you're fortunate to have that kind of experience in that environment and that job where the pressure was already on, like when you're an entrepreneur, a self-employed entrepreneur on your own. When I was consulting, every day was looking for new customers. When I was building 8-Step Startup back in 2015, that course was like I was pre-selling it before I think I'd done like 6 lessons I'd recorded. So it was not really made at all, you know, and so, but it was always, the focus was on getting new customers as the A1 importance thing. I think where a lot of people fall down is that they romanticize too much about their product to the point that they don't actually do any kind of distribution of awareness that it exists, let alone selling, and killing people with wonderful ideas because they don't take that as their main thrust at the start. Yeah, polish as you go, but you've got to be able to breathe, right? Which means you need customers. Yes, yeah, that's one of the questions I actually have for you. Might as well jump onto that, because it's, how do you balance your short-term targets with your long-term goals? Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that the long-term goals are the more important ones. And what you need to do is map back from the long-term goals to determine what you should be doing each day. And you really mustn't sweat the small stuff. This might seem contradictory, given I was talking about kind of getting a different customer, another customer every day or so. Yeah. But what I'm saying with this is, don't worry if you did a post today and usually you get 30 likes and today's one got 5. Stuff like that just doesn't matter. What's the real objective today? It's to do X, because that is another step on the climb of the mountain to the long-term thing. So the short-term goals are always kind of, they're building bricks, you know, putting bricks down. They're always little things, and you just mustn't worry about if the short-term goals aren't being hit so much, in the sense that obviously you try and do them, but if you fail or you fall short or whatever, it's just like, it doesn't matter, because in the scheme of things, it doesn't affect things. In the scheme of things, the success of the basics of sales course just doesn't matter, because it may be topical right now. It may be one of the courses that's really popping, but it just doesn't matter in the whole long run, because I'm not about a course. It's just one step. And if it doesn't work, there'll be other things. So they'll monetize you. And 8-Step Startup was all I was known for at one point. Now it's off the radar because it's just not being marketed. So, you know what I mean? It's, you need to have a healthy perspective about short-term goals, which is attack them aggressively, but be very, very calculated in what they are and, you know, and how they serve a purpose. On their own, each short-term goal really doesn't matter that much, but added together, that's how you get your end results. So choose carefully, because you don't have that much time in the day, do you? Yeah. So you think of the short-term targets, if you get them or not, they're just like, I think Gary Vaynerchuk talks about bricks, brick by brick, you build it. And he talks about the actual idea of, macro and micro. That's it. As long as you've got that macro end goal in mind, he has his legacy similar to me. If it's legacy, then that's what I think that kind of nails the point, because when I'm producing content, especially in the world we're in now, where everything you document is saved online somewhere, what I'm doing, because I have a lot of people I know, a lot of friends and so on, who fear putting themselves out there so much. So the thought
of recording a video is too alien to them, let alone a selfie or a picture or putting an opinion down.
Yes.
Not a chance. Their presence online is their very neat and tidy LinkedIn profile, which is essentially a CV that they never have touched for the past 8 years. And on Facebook, they'll politely like a photo of someone's kid, and they'll not too much, not get in your face, not be too political. They'll just put up something about what they're doing, and it's fine. They do themselves. That's that. But what I'm thinking is, when I'm not around anymore, and my children have grown up, and they're saying things like, look, to their children, saying, you know, here's grandpa. And there's ideally you get, it's not because I want success or abundance or I want to be a famous person. It's just that what I want to do is get out my word, because I think I've got something to share. And I want those people to be looking at video of me or reading something and thinking, wow, he's had a really good point. And it's not about having grandchildren or even my own children look at my stuff when they're older going, wasn't he a great guy? It's more about them, more about me kind of helping them.
Yeah.
And teaching them, because I think the startup entrepreneur and that kind of ecosystem it's very much, it's fashionable at the moment, but I think it's got a long life ahead of it. And I think there's going to be a world ahead for my children and their children and so on, where they need to access the kind of information and help I can give. So the enabler, so I can do that, so I can essentially speak to my own future generations,
yes,
is helping people right now. But when I'm on a Facebook Live doing a Q&A or doing something like this, it's about giving value to the people watching. But there's a bit of my mind that's conscious that one day my family might be watching this. And so I don't want to be a dick or someone who's like, you know, everyone has a problem with someone at some point, but I just want it to be that people are thinking, not just, is he a good guy, but that's really helpful. I could, I would love it if one of my grandchildren decides to do something entrepreneurial, is up to them if they want to, but that they check this advice and we're like, that's really useful. Do you see what I mean? Like, so legacy for family as well.
Yeah.
It's important to recognize that what you do online is left there for a long time. So write with intent to help and teach and be a useful person in your family, rather than being this meek, quiet person that in 80 years passes away and
forgotten.
And there's nothing left of you, because eventually you physically just won't matter, but what you leave might be of use. You just never know, and I think that's worth bearing in mind.
And that's a really good point, actually, about like people can make up their own idea about you based on things that are talked about, and when you put this content out there, you're being yourself. Like I'm myself and you're yourself when you go on video. So being authentic, it basically puts out who you are, who you want to be seen as online as well. That's another really good part of it. I think
so. And it's just, do good. Just go out there and do good. And I'm very, very close to doing some things, some new interesting things with charities as well. And it's just like, if you've got the means and you're in a very, very lucky place, which I feel like, I don't think lucky is the right word, but I'm in a very good place where, I have my own home and a wonderful family, and I'm not in a place where I have to work 6 jobs and I'm an only father or things like that. I'm in a very good place in that respect. I'm touched with that remains. I'm very appreciative of it. So you just got to give and help others, because otherwise there's no point in being selfish and giving in advice or giving in money or giving in time is I think a really nice way to feel. It's not entirely selfless, because it makes you feel really good as well.
I agree that when I've seen you've shared some of the comments that you've received from people who you've given advice to, and I get the same, and that's a great feeling in itself.
When there's a guy last year who was broken, he was on his knees and he had no money and there's debts and things, and this guy, he made several $1,000s a month later because of the Monetize You course, and he just applied himself, and you just think, I've never shook his hand. He's over in the States, but the guy is in a different place. Like, when I'm not interacting with him, when I'm tucked up in bed in the middle of the night and that guy's awake, he's got that much less stress because of something I've done. And it is a massive thing. And there was another guy as well who was like, he was on really kind of, he felt like he had no money or anything, and he used the basics of sales course to like as techniques to help him have a conversation with his boss, and he got himself a pay rise. And that's not changing anyone's world, but it meant that it was just that little less stress. And he's like, he said, now the wife feels better and all that kind of thing. And just, like, if you can reach out and touch someone and actually help them through something, that's really we've got the gift to be able to do it. And you know, for some people I may be sounding a bit touchy-feely, but I think it's a good way to live, because then you through other people, that, you know, at least there's some remnant of yourself helping someone. And I don't even need to know about it, because that ego part, just, I don't care. But if the thought that it could help other people, and if it does, you know, it's a massive thing.
It helps when you get the feedback. I do encourage it, and I know that you encourage it, because it is fuel for us, and that's what we do. But that brings me back to a question I kind of skipped, because we're going into we jumped forward. But this is a funny question. Don't judge me on this question.
Right, I'm going to judge you now. But
Doctor, I'm reading Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search of Meaning. He asked his patients, it's right at the start of the book, why do you not commit suicide? And it's basically AKA, why do you live? Right. And that, like, so that's my question to you, is like, what is your why and your purpose? And is it that, what we just talked about?
Yeah, I feel I owe it to my mum, who worked her face off and had nothing, and shoveled every last penny into her house, so that when sadly she died literally months before she was due to retire, she didn't leave us with any shit or debt. She left us with with everything sorted. And she also, I put a post up about this in my group recently, I'm not just saying, I cannot remember a time with her when she complained. 3 children, you know, single mum, a teacher. There was one point when she was a supply teacher. When I was like 9 years old, or like 13 or 14 years old, I didn't appreciate what she was going through. She had to get up, ride a bike through driving rain. I know we've all had to do things like that, but every day, and then come home and fix dinner or whatever, and then deal with teenagers who have needs and things like that, and equipping me at the same time to not just hustle for us to stay alive so that we could eat and go to school and things, but also to also find the time to educate us up here is unbelievable. Because the kind of, a lot of people might say, oh, you know, you shouldn't be pushed by your parents and things like that. But I'm really glad that she did. There was a lot of, you know, push yourself, Richard, you know, try and be the best at what you do, and apply yourself, and don't waste your time. And do you know what I mean? And that kind of thing really resonated. And I think to be in the place I'm in now, it would be a complete diss if I didn't work. That would be just a completely disrespectful. That. But there's also my children, and I am deeply interested in giving them every experience they could have, or the opportunity or the ability, so as an enabler, basically, to give them any experience thereafter. So if they, for instance, could experience something wonderful, then I want them, and they wish to do that, and we all want to do it. I don't want it to be that we can't because of money or time or something like that. I want it to be that we can create that flexibility, because certainly for a child, life's about experiences rather than living on your own and like not having anything to do or any people to engage with. I want them to get out there and try new things. So, you know, experiences wherever. I'm actually going to, we booked a holiday, Ben, in Scotland, so we're going to go up to a place called Kenmore, which is like 9 hours of driving, so that'll be an experience. But the point is just like take them somewhere new, somewhere different, rather than the same old routine. And I suppose what I'm saying here is my why is making sure that they have that, and my why goes also to my wife, who was a lawyer in the city. And then after having children, it was like, you could go and do that, but it doesn't seem like she wanted to. So, well, what do you want to do? And she set up her own bakery, decorating cakes and so on. So, last year we bought her a new kitchen, and she does that. And it's not so we can do nothing and skip through our days sitting about watching telly. It's so we can apply ourselves, but in a way where you get to do the things you want to do, because I know it sounds touchy-feely, but you're not here long, and the time you are here, there's only actually a portion of it where you are able-bodied. So I just want to be full of experiences. So that's kind of the selfish why.
Yeah.
But also it has to be more to it than that. You got a phone in as well, Ben. I didn't realise.
Whoopsie. 2 seconds, Richard. Sorry about this.
But for those who are still watching while I'm muting, so the point I'm making here is that, as well as doing things so they can be experiences for the family, is also the other thing is allowing that to be the case for other people as well. So I suppose what I'm saying is, if I am experiencing these things and allowing my family to have experiences and be able to say, let's do this today, let's go here, let's try that. I want that to be something other people can experience as well, because I've come from a very difficult place. I've come from a very linear upbringing in it's like, you will go to university, you will go and work as an employee. The thought of you being self-employed is a little bit like, I don't think you should be doing that. That's, I want people to be able to understand that they can experience what they're into if they apply themselves. And so I suppose my why goes out to people, as other people, as well as just to my family and me.
Yeah, so lots of whys.
There kind of is, but actually there isn't. It's also around this one thing of, there is so much out there you can do and experience. Yeah. It's criminal to not do things to allow you to go and experience them. So that might be travel or interacting with people. One of the best things I do is, like on Wednesday this week, meeting yet more new people who have got new jobs in the world of sales, and I'm going to be coaching them. And the first 10 minutes is just getting to know these people. And so every single week I'm physically meeting brand new people, and it is, that kind of thing is essential. And it's sad if you've got, unless people want it, it's sad if you've got someone who has so much routine, in the sense that they do the same thing over and over again, and in the words of Seneca, they just pass time rather than live. And I'm getting kind of deep, but that's really that's what the why is about. It's about ultimately getting to a place where you can experience your life when you have the shot at it, rather than just passing time. And having that awareness is something I think everyone should try to strive for. Yeah,
well, you're very aware on that anyway with that question. So I think deep is, don't worry about that. It's the deeper the better, really, with these types of questions, because I think it's very important, as well as just tips to grow your business, that people understand what drives entrepreneurs.
Yeah, look, I ran a session with about 8 people, and they ranged in age from 21 to, I think the oldest guy there was 27, and they were in a corporate job. They turn up on a Monday at 9 o'clock and they go home on Friday at 5:30, and they have their job. And what happens is, over time, it wears them down if they're just doing the same job. Every week the boards get wiped clean and they have to start their sales targets again. These guys are selling marketing. And if you don't tap into a real emotional, personal driver, which is the whole point of the session we went through. We went through understanding what things push you. We went through understanding accountability and getting the correct type for yourself, because everyone has different types of accountability that they respond to, and things like that. And then looking at goals, so immediate, short, medium, and long. And some people at the end, because I was asked at the end of the session, is there anything here you can take away? And there was one guy who was like, this has just made me realize I really need to think about what I'm really doing in my life, because this guy was 26. He was like, 26 is young as hell, but he was like, I've been here for a few years now, and I do just show up, and there's nothing pushing me to kind of go and sell, unless the manager says, come on, let's go do this because we've got a target to hit. But that's not going to emotionally make him want to get on the phone, other than fear of losing his job if he doesn't. It's got to be something deeper.
Yeah.
And I called because I'm very direct in these kind of meetings. I said, I can see some of you are uneasy because getting deep like this it's not what people do normally. And I'm not a life coach by any stretch, but it wasn't meant to be motivating. It's about saying, what I said to him basically was, if you don't do this now, you definitely will be doing it later in life, because you'll get to a point later in life where you think either you win and everything goes well, or I'm just not happy and I need to fix something. So the sooner you do, you get that awareness and get deeper with yourself, the better.
Yeah.
You can see there were some people who just got it and they're already like, I know what I want. There was a guy who's like, I want my property portfolio and I'm working every day to it. And it's the reason why I pick the phone up, rather than, I don't know, I just need to pay rent, you know.
Yeah.
And I think you should, some people say you shouldn't be thinking about that at an early stage. You should be experimenting, trying different things, but you should have a sense of where you want to go, or you know, or at least that you should be living with some sense of purpose. Even if that purpose changes, that's fine, but have some sense of it. Otherwise, time goes quick. Seriously. I was 21 a moment ago. I'm now 37. It goes fast. I know I sound like a granddad saying it, right? But it's true. It goes fast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it goes very fast. And like you said, back to what you mentioned about like experiences, I totally can relate with that. And how your mum helped you, I can also relate to that, because that's my dad's done a lot for that. He really pushed me, and the reason I'm running my own businesses right now is because of my dad. I had that opportunity. My dad educated me through my childhood and up until now, and I'm so thankful for what he's done for me as well. But the idea of like starting your own business, that itself gives you those experiences that you talk about, meeting people every day, like these podcasts. I'm meeting so many people that I admire through even building their website for them, doing podcasts and interviewing people, and it just enriches your life when you can go out there and. But you see, the thing forces you to do it.
Yeah, I think, but underneath this, there's actually there's a simplistic reason why building your own business is a good thing to try as well. And what it is that we've got a society that for most, in the main, has constructed a very safe way to live. Hey, we'll give you a job as long as you do what you're told, you can get paid, and then someone will give you a house renting, right? So as long as you pay them some of that money and you pay some to the government, we'll look after your roads as well. And we'll build shopping centers and supermarkets right next to where you live. So, you know, so everything is like, if you really wanted to, you can just turn up to work. You can not switch on your brain much at all. But that's taking away from what really is to be human. You're not being exploratory. You're not being ambitious. And I feel that deep down that is in DNA. And I think that my personal view is it's a waste when you have that potential. So the reason why building a business is great isn't just for obvious things like you can buy nice things for yourself, or if you're desperate for a Lamborghini or whatever. It's more about accessing those moments that can be really informative, and they can be really, really educational, like putting yourself in a position where you have to have a little bit of fear and a little bit of stress and a little bit of the need to have lateral thinking. Like, how am I going to fix this problem? Because the buck stops with me. Having responsibility, having to work out problems, but at a very base level, it's putting yourself in a place where you're not in with thousands of safety nets. It's like, I need to make it all work. And I think it's important, it's good for the soul to push yourself through those things, because then you can look back 2 months later and say, I did that bit, I fixed it, or I got the thing moving, and now, you know, and now it's employing 2 people, whatever. So I think building your own business is important, because it does create some fear and it does create some stress, and I think that's healthy. What's the book? Was it Inheritance by Sharon Molan?
Yeah.
And he said, you know, some stress is good, you know. And there's a saying which is, if you don't, I can't remember who said it now, if you don't use it, you lose it with your brain, you know. It's people talk about staving off Alzheimer's and dementia and things like that. It's like, and then I remember my grandmother always did crosswords and things like that, and Sudoku, and she's like, I need to do this because it keeps my brain firing. I'm like, it probably does, you know. And
sharp,
little things, you can't just, you know, you got a great shot because you're alive, so you should be making use of it. Again, just my opinion.
Yeah, and I agree with your opinion. Like you're saying, I think it was Tim Ferriss, I mentioned it in another podcast, it's eustress, and that's the stress, instead of just unnecessary stress. Eustress allows you to grow, and putting yourself in those positions that don't have the safety nets, that allows you to grow.
Yeah, and you know, that what's interesting is that there are times at work where I'm kind of stressed, but it's all stuff I could see coming. And that's what's so good about it, rather than suddenly there's a boss or someone who's just like, I've got this problem now, and you're dealing with their stress or incapacity to a lack of capacity to be able to deal with something. And it's better when it's like, you can see over the horizon when it's your own business. You can say, I know that in 2 months, this is going to happen. You just get real with yourself. And if anything gets stressful, it's always down to you. It's always your fault, which is one of the best things ever, when everything's your fault, or at least that mindset. So you just don't make excuses. You grow up and you say, I need to try and fix things. And I need to make it work. You know, it was 5 months ago on Sunday, on Monday, but 5 months ago I had major surgery, and I couldn't use that as an excuse for not generating income for my family, because it's my job, or at least we've decided that will be my job, that I bring in the money. So I had to set stuff up and then create a world where if I have to have major surgery, then the world's not going to stop spinning and everyone's going to be okay. Because actually, even though I came out of hospital after actually just under a week, I was not right for a long time. There was a couple of weeks of not feeling good and it being very difficult. And you need to make sure that you're covering other things. So covering the downside, as Richard Branson said, I'm trying to give you some book quotes here because it's your group.
Yes.
But covering the downside, as Richard Branson always said, is very intelligent. So many people, this is with training as well, so many people learn how to work with the upside. So when things go right, they know what to do. When someone says yes, you know exactly how to fill out your booking form for your customer. But when things go wrong, you're not prepared. And I think it's important to cover that as well. You know, if I pass away, my household and family aren't going to be like, oh, we have now no money or anything like that. There is stuff set up. So insurance and things like that, so that they'll be okay, because you just got to, it's about being grown up, I think. And so selecting the stress you go towards is a good thing. Again, it's just all down to that. I think these things are good for you because they push you and grow you. You can't, if you wrap yourself up in cotton wool all the time, it's not much of a life, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's controlled stress.
Yeah.
That's the best type of stress.
Jump and do stuff. Nothing will hurt you. You'll be fine, is kind of it in a nutshell. If anyone's on the fence about starting a business, do it. What's the worst that will happen? It doesn't work. It probably won't work, because that's what happens with businesses. They probably don't work. I looked through domains I'd bought days ago. There was one that was £1 martial arts page. Oh no, it was a £1 million martial arts page, because I got the idea when someone did a $1 million web page where everyone could buy one pixel on this million, as like 1,000 by 1,000 grid of pixels, and each one was an advert, and each advert cost $1. And this student put himself at university, and it was like 15 years ago, and it was it became a cult thing. I'm like, I can do that, I can sell advertising on it. And I'm like, that was a complete flop. It didn't work because I didn't know how to market it properly at the time. So it just doesn't matter. You can always go and get a 9 to 5 again if you're desperate to. You'll be fine. In the world we're in, we're very lucky. We don't live in the Sudan or something like that. We're in a tremendously fortunate position. Most people have ridiculous fear based on very little evidence that things are go very bad for them.
Yeah. So build the parachute on your way down, as they say.
Yeah. It's fun. You know,
Yeah.
people are like, oh God, it gets boring after a while when people are saying things like, but aren't you scared? Like, well, what happens if you don't, you know, how do you know it's going to be all right? It's like, but that's the point. That's what's so
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
You know, some of the best moments were really early on. And I remember there was one day when I was like, I need £1,000 today. Otherwise I can't pay bills and wages and things like that. I need £1,000 today. And I don't know where it's coming from. And I think it's just my DNA, maybe, I don't know, but I love that.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go make $1,000. I don't know how I'll do it, but I have to. So I'm going to. So whenever my back's to the wall, that's when I win the most. I tend to do better then.
Can I ask you a question? How did you make the £1,000?
I got on the phone. I got on the phone,
Yeah.
and I was back to back selling. I was on the phone. I remember, and I was also Facebook messaging as well. I was closing people on anything. Like, how about giving them outrageous value? Because the thing is, the next month I had to do it again, but at least I had a bit more time to do it. But I was like, I have to do this, and but the hard part about the next month, I remember, was that I had to then deliver, and I was offering consulting. And I was saying, I will do this and 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 this, and you know, and let's just charge $500 for it or something like that. And they were like, hell yes! And I went, okay, I've got a bit now. Now on to the next one. And those moments are fantastic. And that's again, I look back at this kind of thing romantically. At the time, it wasn't stressful. I was just very, very focused on it. But I love that kind of thing, and I think more people would enjoy it than they think.
Yes.
It's actually quite thrilling. And exposure to that kind of thing puts you in it's fun. It is fun because you'll be fine.
Yes.
You just will. Things will work out. If you're really screwed, you know, unless you've leveraged everything you ever had against something, and you're going to end up on the street, even then you're fine because there's soup kitchens and so on. You know, it's like, you're not going to lose your life probably. So just jump in and try it. It's really good fun. Yeah.
And like you say, have insurances in place, like you're saying, be growing up, but take some risks because, I
took a risk. I had a wife who wasn't working, and I now have 2 children as well. And every day you still need to be some calculated risks. Don't do stupid things. Like, there was this guy recently who was asking me if he should go to this mastermind course. So there's a really good marketer. He was going to have some speakers there, and it was something like $5,000 it was. And I said, imagine you're the CEO of a business. This is really practical advice again. I said, imagine the CEO of the business, and imagine all the money that you had in that business, all of the kind of the liquidity was about, say, you know, £300,000. And then if you borrowed another £100,000, you could then go and take advantage of one opportunity. Think how stupid that is, and irresponsible for the business, for its employees as well. Just think how dangerous that is to throw all that money against one thing. And I said, and this is exactly what you're doing here. And it was like, you will be utterly broke if you spend as much money as you have on that. And because the guy was asking me for some fund, like, he was like, would you give me some money so I can do it? So he was asking for money that he didn't have to cover one thing. And what it was he had been completely sold on hype by this great marketer. And it was like, your world won't change that much by you going to this course. You'll have it neatly packaged and you'll learn a lot of stuff and you'll meet some good people, but you're not suddenly overnight going to start making all that money back. And it's like, you just, there's the calculated risk. It's, if I go and it doesn't help me, I've wasted and thrown away a huge amount of money. I've got some things from it, but you need better returns than that. The odds were too crap. So acting like a CEO, even if you're a solopreneur, act as though, you know, scale up what funds you have. Imagine that represents 2 million quid instead of 100 quid, if that's all you've got in your bank. And imagine if you had to pay people's wages and things like that. Now, would you really throw all that away on one thing? Do you see what I mean? Just thinking like that is a bit more intelligent. And, you know, the decision to do things should be slightly risky, but not so that if it doesn't work out, the entire thing falls down.
Yeah.
Really. You know what I mean?
I totally agree with that. It's like buying equipment for a podcast. I'm already a few episodes into. It's spending money where you're putting your time. And I agree with like spending money on conferences because you get a lot of value out of them. You can apply it to your business.
But when it's all the money you actually have, and then you're asking for others, it's like, you can't go to the conference. You want to go, you need to make some more money first.
And there's conferences that you can go to for a couple of £100, and there's secondhand books that you probably get the same amount of value out of for £2 at a secondhand bookstore.
It's stupid. I mean, if I wanted, I could dump all my money. I could go buy a Porsche 911. Yeah. But then instantly, like, so now I'm broke, can't afford anything, and I have to sell the car. So it's kind of stupid. So you just be a bit more intelligent about what you're buying. I think it's interesting, that point, because if you look at it from a book point of view as well, it goes all the way down to there. Being calculated with all of your decisions, I think, is a good way to be, because every decision you tend to take is an emotional one, right? When it comes to buying things. So you need to, from a business perspective, always have that practical head on as well. And what it comes down to is things like books. Like, why am I reading this book in front of me right now? Is there some value in doing that? Is it I'm reading literature because this story is going to help me relax? Or am I reading this particular practical guide on, how to build Facebook ads because I run Facebook ads? If I'm not, then why am I reading it? It's like, I'm using up my time.
Yes.
Using time as though I have infinite amount of it. I don't. So why would I choose things that don't really help what I'm doing at the moment? So I think a lot of people read, if you look at books, I think people read what's fashionable. And that's fine, because to a degree, because it's like, well, it's popular, so it's probably a good book. Yeah, but read what you need to read. You can't read everything. It's like when people read The Intelligent Investor. It's the classic example I use, by Ben Graham, who was the mentor to Warren Buffett, the investor. Yeah. There's this huge tome called The Intelligent Investor. It's very dry. I've gone through it.
Listened to it. Yeah.
It's, man, it's hard work. But people they buy it. Let alone, let's not even talk about people who bother actually to read it, but they buy it and then pose with it. And it's like, you just wasted a load of cash and time, because actually you're building a hairdressing business. What the hell do you need this book for? If you plan to start investing, there are more accessible guides for starters. But do you see what I mean? Like, there's no point in posing with a book or buying and reading a book and spending time on stuff that's going to wait. It just isn't going to help your cause. I'm all for learning in the periphery and experiencing new things. But if it's like, this is set aside this time to do some reading to help my business, why am I reading this thing right now? Is there there?
It's been very, I'm very strict with like what I pick up now. And that's one of the main reasons behind setting up Ben's Business Book Club, is like, there's not infinite time. No. And it takes, I think I worked out, it takes on average about 20 hours to read a large book, a small book, like on average, depending on what size it is, but on average about 20 hours. If you're really studying that book, you're taking tabs, you're doing highlights, and you're actually questioning what you're reading as well. Yeah. There's two types. There's lots of types of reading, and that's the type of reading I do. And I'm learning how to be more analytical in the reading. It takes about 20 hours to read a book, so why waste your time reading crap books?
But I
can't relate it to what you're actually wanting to learn.
Yeah, I think I went through a very I went through a period of being very, I was going to be an academic and I was going to do my PhD and then end up just writing books and lecturing and staying at university. I didn't in the end, but I romanticized about books a lot, and I was, they were like these objects of grandeur. And whereas now, I suppose what I'm trying to say is I would start reading a book and feel like obliged to the book to finish it and things like that. Whereas now I'm like, this book is no good. I'm going to stop reading because my time's more important than completion.
Yes.
Of the book. And the same goes for like when I read for say a 10 minutes period, I will pick up a book and say, right, challenge, 1 chapter, 10 minutes, find a thing that you didn't know that you can apply. And I'm like, okay, this is no good. I'm not finding it. I'm going to switch to another chapter, get something from it. And then move. The very practical reading approach I have, as opposed to this passive where through the passage of time, I consume the words on the page. I want to be a bit more active when I read, because then I get more from those moments. I'm absolutely fine with picking up a book, reading it for 10 minutes, getting a piece of information, and that book doesn't see my eyes again for 8 months because I'm maybe dipping into others. I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Rather than, I've got to finish this one before I go to the next one.
Yeah, and I remember you talked about like we treat books with too much care, and like you're saying, just want to get what you need out of that and then move on. And I'm getting my head around that as well. Like I was definitely along the same lines of you, like enjoying the actual physical book and like reading it from start to finish. But I totally get that point as well. I've quit a lot of books halfway through when it's just not been good enough.
They're definitely trophies for some people, and it's funny because there's a lot of bookshelves out there, I can imagine, with pristine copies of all the obvious cliche books. None of them have had their spines cracked yet. And it's like, you don't read, why have you got them? And but now I just don't care. And it's like, if I can just get the audio book, I can consume it faster. I don't care about not physically owning it. It doesn't matter. You know, some books like Crushing It's coming out, so I've pre-ordered it, and it's only hardback. Oh, it's only in hardback, whatever, just get it. I would like, that's a book I want to actually physically have so I can mark it. But the original so that's Crushing It, but the original Crush It, I don't own it. I have it on Audible. It's like, oh, but you should only, no, you shouldn't. You should do what you need with it, which is listen to it. I listen to it way more than if I owned the book, because it's in the car.
You're on the move. Yeah, and like you're saying, your time's limited, especially when you're running a business. My reading was almost taken over at one point. I was reading too much, and now I'm kind of making it a small area of my day that I spend reading, and then I take action the rest of the day. So it's a small percentage of the day. The rest is action.
60 million% agree with you. It's so right. I think overreading is a killer. And it sounds ironic that I'm saying this because I'm a voracious reader, rather, but I do think that it can be overdone. It should feature each day some consumption of another person's theory. Don't worry. This is why, I've got over this now. It used to, I was like, but I have to read. I haven't read, so I must stay up. I'm like, it's like, no, consume someone else's ideas. And if I don't read 3 times a day, it might be because I read twice. One of those reads was Audible. When I was walking somewhere, I was listening to something, and the third read might have been watching it on YouTube instead, or listening to a podcast. It doesn't have to be a book. Silly rules that impede your progress. But I do feel I said this to a client recently. I was like, it has to be dipped into. I think a book should be dipped into each day. I think it's a really good idea, but don't expect it to change your world overnight. Little by little, it makes a big difference overall. And I think that making it a feature in your world is a great way of enriching your world, just like television can as well. Okay?
Yes.
Just like meeting friends can. I set aside time last night. So I did a full day's work. Then I went out to teach Taekwondo. Then I came back and I went and saw some friends for some, sounds really boring for many, but for calculated downtime. It was a couple of hours. I'm going to go and spend some time with these guys, because it can't be what I do all the time, but it should feature.
Yes.
Everything in moderation, some things not in moderation, some things in very little amounts.
Yeah.
And something in excess, such as focusing on generating sales if you're in a startup space. So it depends on what your situation is. Yeah.
I think it's the Greeks say nothing in excess, but when you're a startup, you don't have any choice to.
But that's the big killer. It's that you have startup business owners. Oh, it's stressful just saying it. You have some people who I was coaching recently. There's a guy who was saying, look, I can't get all this work done and close all these sales in a week. It can't be done. I said, it can be done. You choose not to do it. But the thing is, if you want to go home at 5:30, I can't tell the guy to stay late. There's a thing called HR and his contract says till 5:30. But I said, if you're cool with going home at 5:30, you have to be cool with the amount of results you can generate in that period. Okay. And so if you want more and you can't generate more in the period of time you're assigning yourself at work, you can't complain. What you can do is change and stay a bit later and do a bit more. And, so excess is important at times, because sometimes you've got to do it. And it's just silly. That the guy was like, but I couldn't do it. But it's 5:30. You know, it's home time now. I get to go home and chill out. I was like, so don't complain. If you want more money, the reason why I did well when I started selling wasn't because I was any good. It was really ugly then. Like it was probably really awkward to listen to. But it's because I worked way more than anyone else. The first year, all I can remember is if I wasn't at work, I would be at home writing up leads.
Yep.
Brand new guy in London, should be out doing stuff. Yeah, not that much at all. Weekends, I was spending money on books on how to sell or spending commission on going to conferences. You know? And this was way before there's this trend of being an entrepreneur and invest in yourself and online, you know, the social media thing hadn't kicked off. Facebook wasn't even around then. No one was like, yeah, you should go and invest in yourself. It was just like, but that makes sense. I will excessively do this kind of stuff because it will get me ahead in the future. I was the guy that was on the tube. Back then, no one had mobile phones playing Candy Crush, but you can imagine they did the equivalent of it. But I would be reading Shipping Weekly because I was telling marketing to people working in shipping. And they're like, who's this dude reading trade magazine? But it's because it got me ahead. And so I was excessive what I was doing then. But then you ease back because you've done your learning, so you can then go and execute it. And I just think
that's how you get ahead.
That's the point. And so we were talking just before we did the podcast about Slack, which I'm getting into after meeting a guy this week who's helping me with part of it. And yesterday was excessively focused on building a Slack workplace because I need to learn it. Or I could do a bit, and then it's a 3-month runway to get there. Just want to go excessive on one thing, get it going, then you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's like, I think I read it. It was David Ogilvy in his book Advertising, and they mentioned that you should steep yourself in your subject or what you're doing. Like you're saying, the one thing, get that one thing nailed, and then move on.
But you should want to. This is the point. This is the point of the Monetize You course that you're offering. Is like you should want to do this stuff.
Yeah.
I know that my wife is doing the right thing by running this bakery because in any moment of downtime, they are rare because we have children. You know what it's like. But in any moment of downtime, her default, if she's got say her iPad out, is to be on Pinterest looking for ideas or watching a how-to on YouTube, not something that's completely unrelated. And so that's it perfectly shows that she's doing the right thing because there's the work that she would do during the day and then she just can't help herself doing more of it in the evening. And that's a really good sign. If when you down tools at the end of your day, whenever that is, you don't naturally in your mind kind of just migrate back to that subject because you're obsessed by it and really into it, you're probably doing the wrong thing. So I think about I'm absolutely fine with saying this because I think it's a good way to approach it. I think about my business or businesses as much as I think about my children and my wife because it means just as much to me as they do in the sense that, of course, I would always choose my family over my business, but my point is that by being able to obsess about this stuff, because I naturally want to, that's what gets me ahead. I just love it. I can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And that's why people get perplexed. They're like, why are you up working so late? The Taekwondo team, they're like, why do you go home and then do some more work? Like, are you okay? Are you strapped for money? No, I just love it. Why are you writing? Why are you putting stuff on LinkedIn now? You don't have to. Stay quiet, right?
Yeah.
But I really like doing it, so why shouldn't I?
Yeah. It's like going back to your why. It's where your free time, like you're saying, your spare time, where your head drifts off to, or what you, like you're saying, default go to.
Yeah.
That is being aware of that and not cutting that out either, like based on other people's opinions of you seem obsessed and crazy. It's allowing yourself to be that person.
Yeah. And the thing is, the older you, God, I sound like I'm saying this, but the older you get, the less you care about doing things so people think you're doing the right thing and you just do stuff you want to do. And that doesn't mean shirking responsibility. I still take the bins out and things like that. But just, you know, like, why am I building a business that I don't want to do? There's no point. You do things you want to. And this is a perfect example, came up at the end of last year. There's a guy I'm working with, and he was building a social media. He was like, I'm going to build this social media marketing business. A lot of people do it. And he said, I'm going to do this because I think that's the thing I should be doing. And the words he was using was, I think I should do this. And I said, let's talk now about the things that are going to get in your way and hold you back. So we were just kind of on a consulting call, and he said, I'm really, I think the guy's like 27 or something. He said, I'm really embarrassed to say this, but I'm going to be open with you because I've been honest so far. And the thing that I'm worried about is that I can be quite lazy. And I said, so explain, let's play that out. What do you mean by that? He said, well, by lazy, what I mean is my major weakness is that, and like he said, I don't tell anyone this, but every day for probably 4 hours a day, because otherwise it would really get in the way of working things. For about 4 hours a day, I can't stop playing online, like on I think it's an Xbox or whatever he has.
Yeah.
Consoles. He's like, I know he's actually a PC gamer. Sorry, so he's playing online. Okay. He's like, you know, Call of Duty, things like that. I've got the headset and everything, and I could see it in his physical, like how he pumped up. And he was so embarrassed by it because socially it's a little unacceptable to spend all your time, especially as a grown man, doing that. It's like, I'm like, but why isn't your business around this? Rather than hiding away from it and allowing yourself a little bit of time here and there. And it's like, you can't build a business around playing computer games. It's like, au contraire. You can. And in fact, there's a guy I'd coached to do that. And he you know, he built tournaments, and like, he ended up spending his day. I mean, there's people online who do it.
There's millionaires that do video gaming and things. Yeah,
exactly. And even like, you can make a couple of grand a month if you're good by streaming yourself playing computer games. And I sent him a link to a girl who's doing it, and she had it was like her third ever video, and she was playing Quake Champions, and she was crushing everyone. And so people were watching, and they were throwing her money as well. But the thing is, I said, you don't even need to be any good. PewDiePie isn't any good. Markiplier isn't any good. They're making millions a year. When they play computer games, they're like getting really frustrated. And people watch people who are great because they want to watch people who are great. They watch people who are crap because they want to laugh at people being crap. Or you launch your own thing, which is talking about it. You know, maybe you, Ben, haven't read every book in the world, but by having a business book club, it's still accessible and you learn from it. And I think that, you know, it was amazing.
Yeah, there's people who have read like way more books than me in my book club.
Yeah, you don't have to be at the top of your game to be able to access it. And the book club, without question, will have generated you some business, even if it's not directly. But it's great because this guy was like, so actually, because I've started getting clients with social media, my super social media business, I can then leverage that to start putting myself out there in with video games. I was like, there you go. Because if the dream is, if you could do anything, it would be playing computer games. So let's build towards that. And it's, it's amazing what you can do with your time, if you want to. Yeah,
that's very interesting. I think that like this whole conversation's kind of veered off in a good direction, because I was going to go for like practical sales tips and things, but how I could maybe summarize some of the things we've been talking about is that the practical advice is good, but if it's not aligned with your why first, where your energy is, your why is your energy. And
it is.
There's no point having practical advice on passionate things.
You're right, but there's a caveat here, because in my experience, a lot of people get paralyzed trying to search for the why.
Yes.
And so this is so important. So many people don't start because they're like, yeah, but I don't feel it's my why. And I don't feel I'm not passionate about this thing. It's wrong to do it that way. I feel what you need to do, do you know what it is? If I use a good analogy here of, say, playing football, there are goalkeepers, right? There are defenders. I don't know how many of your group are American, so I might have to give you some translation. But soccer, you've got goalkeepers, you've got defenders, midfielders, and strikers. rather than saying, I'm not going to go on the pitch until I know what position I'm good at, and am I going to be passionate being in goal or a striker. What you should be doing, metaphorically speaking, what you should be doing is going on the pitch and playing football and then seeing where you gravitate to. That's what I did. Yeah. I realized when I was a child that by playing football over and over again, I was a really good right winger because I was on the pitch enough. Rather than going, I reckon that should be where I go, I just started. And so the advice here is start something that probably you know a good amount about, and holds an interest, and you'll evolve from there. I'm the perfect example. I thought it was Taekwondo. As I built the Taekwondo schools, yeah, it's nice to teach Taekwondo, I enjoy it. But in those moments, we talked about this a moment ago, in my default state when I had spare time, I didn't decide to go and watch YouTube videos on Taekwondo. Never. I wasn't checking out the latest champion. It was like, it's nice to teach. I like doing it, but I love building the businesses and helping people do that. And so I pivoted and went in that direction. So you need to be on the pitch to really understand and allow your why to come through, because you need the experiences and feedback from the trenches, so you can say to yourself, do you know what? I don't want to do that so much. I need to do a bit more of this. Or your business as it starts will often evolve and become something slightly different. And
yeah, that's one of the best analogies I've heard of that.
Yeah, but that's it. And you cannot work out what you're going to do unless you start something. And what you've got to do is give yourself permission to pivot and just say, look, the thing I'm going to start is something I kind of know a bit about. Maybe I know loads about social media, so I'll start that. And I'll do a social media business because why not? And what I need to do is go in with the expectation that probably, statistically, it's very unlikely that I'm that lucky that the first thing I decide to do is the thing I'm going to do, right?
Yes.
For instance, for you, I don't know exactly the story, but if I create an example from you, you're great with building websites and web development and things like that. So it might be that if you had a 9-to-5 job, you decide to go build websites because you know you can do it. But after a while, you're like, actually, it's the search engine optimization part I really love. I'm going to spin off and go do that. And actually, I don't build websites anymore. Do you see? And I end up just doing that. And let's just let yourself evolve and have the expectation that probably it won't be the thing that you end up doing, that you start doing. That doesn't mean have the expectation you're going to fail, because you're not failing. What you're doing, you're pivoting your way. You're like, actually, it's a bit more this. I want to do a bit less that. I want to be out networking or speaking a bit more. So that's now what the world needs to look like. And you just be willing to jump in and think, probably I'm not going to be doing the thing I will be doing forever. It won't be the passion. It won't be my why that I've got, but it will help me understand it because it's exposing me to an enabler to work out what my why is. You've got to be on the itch to answer those questions. Yes.
So it's through action and experience you discover and become more aware of what it is that you actually want.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
So let's get into something I was going to ask. You taught me something very practical when I told you about my idea of I have a super Thursday. And you talked about the idea, which I'll explain because it's a question on top of this answer. But you taught me about the when to do list, and that's when you write for every single minute of the day. You go through the day and write down exactly what you want. I found that was a really good piece of advice. Rather than a to-do list, it's a when to do list, and write it down. I found getting into the habit of doing that, the discipline of doing that as like a daily ritual, difficult. Have you got any advice on that? Because that's something for me as well.
Absolutely right. So,
because I get good at, I do it. I'm kind of sporadic in that way. So I do it sporadically, and there's a day where I have a great day, and when I write that when to do list and I stick to it, and when I don't stick to it, I don't have a great day.
It's difficult because you need something that you will that you will follow through on. So for example, I've got a whiteboard behind me, and that's where I normally do a when to do list. I've rubbed it off because it's got some sensitive stuff on it. But what you need to do is, the first thing you do when you go into your office or when you start your day or whatever, is have a place where this is an enabler again, is having a piece of paper or a whiteboard or something and say, right, job one must be to write the start of the when to do list. And the way to make sure you do it is to literally stride over to the piece of paper or to the whiteboard, pick up the pen and write whatever time. So now it's at time of recording, it's 12:23. So the first thing is I would write 12:23 WTT. So when to do. When WTD even. And then I'd start with the next thing. By taking a focus wholly on action, I've not allowed my brain to engage in, oh yeah, but do I feel like that? And no, I could do something else. You know what? I'll just check my WhatsApp first or something. Don't allow any time to pass. You have to go do that first. It's like if you want to get out of bed, before you think about if you want to get out of bed, covers off, go, action. Don't have any debate with yourself about how you feel about it or if you want to do it. Okay, I'm kind of summarizing the book I will be eventually writing, which is about being emotionless in the right times as an entrepreneur. So that's possibly the title, I don't, but it's essential. Time, as it passes, allows you to think. And if you think, in some situations, if you think, you talk yourself out of stuff. So the point is, before I check emails or phones or anything like that, it's straight in and write up when to do list. Now, first job will be this. Then I'm quarter of the way through it, writing it in before I've done anything else. You are not allowed to do anything until that list has been started. And I say started because you might run out of things to do and not be sure. Often I write a list then and it's until lunchtime or until a coffee break at say 11:32. And then I'll write like 11:32, have coffee, 11:49 or whatever, continue list. Now, habit is going to be your friend. So you have to build the habit. Okay, I think many people know about the 2009 research done by, I think it was University of East London or someone who did the habits, and there's the 66 days that it takes to build a habit. That's actually a misquote. Well, a lot of people think it's 66 days to build a habit. The average for the data set that they used was 66 days. For some, it was 2 weeks. Some, I think the longest it took one person was 180 days to build a habit of doing something every single day. Regardless, everyone is different, but you need to do something every single day, and eventually that habit will build. But by taking it out the opportunity to think, that's the way to do it. So you've got to have a bit of discipline, but I recognize that willpower and discipline is hard when it's not something you're used to doing. I think you'd probably agree, after say 3 weeks of doing it every single day, you'd probably be in a bit more of a routine of doing it, and so you'd be all right. The alternative is to kind of think about how good it would be for you if you built that list and how productive you've been in the past when you've done it, but it just doesn't have it doesn't give you the same impetus. Stride over to the paper, start writing it. Don't think. It's happening. It has to happen. So I'm doing it. And that is before breakfast, before you make your cup of tea in the morning, before you check your phone, start the list. And it has to be like that. And just say like, I don't get to think until that list is started. And as you start, then you'll start evolving it. But the point is, it's the action of beginning the list that's important. Hopefully that answers your question. But
a question on top of that is, how about when you're traveling? I feel that's the days that I slip up when I'm traveling.
Yeah, and this is the same as when it's a holiday. What about, Richard, when it's a wedding? What about when I have Christmas Day? So you need to have a system where you can write the list on. Maybe it's on your phone.
Like whiteboard here. Yeah.
You got a whiteboard there, but say I'm traveling.
This is in my office. I'm actually at my parents' house today. Okay, traveling today. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So anywhere you are, but I think you need to recognize the situation you're in. If you're going to be traveling, then you need to work around that, and you need to plug that into the list. But have a system always. And so the person I get the most messages from on my phone is me, because I text myself all the time with reminders. I schedule a reminder for a certain time to pop up for me to remind something. But if I'm on the move, the when to do list will be written on the phone or something like that, or whatever, as long as it gets done. You know?
Yeah. Just the notes,
whatever it is, somewhere. Because the act of writing it down creates some sense of
plants a seed
there, and it goes in your head. Yes, you're right.
Yeah. It's the subconscious, I think, that and just having something to return to when you're not sure where to connect the next dot. You go back to that list and you see it, and you can just go and do it then.
Do you know what's so good about the when to do list is that it takes the thinking out of it. Then it's paint by numbers. It's when this thing is done, it's that thing, and then when that's done, it's that thing. And it's so liberating, because you get insane amounts of stuff done. Like I reckon I'm as productive as 3 people when I'm doing my when to do list every day. I just get stuff done. And it's nice because you look at it and you think, I know at 4:08 this afternoon, all this stuff's going to be done. It's fantastic. And it's just do it, move to the next thing. And that's what I like about it, is that you can say, right, I've got 2 minutes left to finish this, because then I have to do that next thing, and just you get stuff.
I think, that's probably where I've slipped up. But just because I've always been used to to-do lists, I'm getting into this habit of when to-do lists. And I think probably a lot of people are probably the same when they switch over to a when to-do list, is that if you're in the habit of just having a to-do list, you allow it to carry over to the next day. But that's the...
You cannot rely on willpower and discipline to start with.
You
can only rely on building a habit. And to build the habit, you have to not think when you start it.
Okay.
So that's why it has to be act first, then decide how you felt about writing your when to do list after having written it. The same with so many things. Jump.
It's like I've always had a problem getting up at 6 a.m. I get up at 6 a.m. almost every day now, and that was using a 60-60 challenge sheet, and they work really well.
It's just like, all it is saying, I don't get to decide how I feel is going to affect if I do it or not. I know it needs to get done, so it's being done. And if I enjoy it, good for me. If I don't, too bad, because it needs to be done. Because in this moment, I'm working for my business, and my business requires it. I've used the analogy before of a baby, right? And again, you can relate, I'm sure. But at 4 a.m, when your baby is crying, you don't want to get up. You'd rather be asleep, but you have to. There's no debate. There's not, how do I feel about getting up? And no, the baby needs to go and fix it. Do you know what I mean? You don't think, and it's creating the similar moment to, my house is on fire. How do I feel about fixing this problem? No, just fix it. And it's the same. It's funny because people do this all the time. It's not like it's something new. They do act instinctively or in the moment if they have to. So you have to allow that to come into your business world. I remember once there was this dog in a playground, not a playground, on a field. It was running towards my two children. And I was like, go away, and I will break you, dog, if you come in. Like, just pick them off the ground. There was no like, I wonder what I should do here. Don't be paranoid. And then decide how you felt afterwards. For a lot of things, not everything, but for a lot of things is important. Being emotionless all the time is obviously inhuman.
I think we probably rely on our commitments, and then when we don't have commitments, we have that freedom, the autonomy to just do not to do the to-do list.
Say yes, just start, and then debate it later when you've finished it.
Another question is, it's kind of we're on the question of like routine and things. What does a normal morning look like to Richard Moore between the hours of maybe 5 a.m. and 9 a.m?
5 a.m. I'm asleep. But less flippantly. So I'll get up quite early, but I get up every morning and I will look after my girls and breakfast and things like that.
Yes.
I wanted it to be that I would get up, I'd let my wife, who looks after my children during the day usually, or our children I should say, have a bit of chill out time. How nice is that? Make us some tea or something like that. So the first part of the day is quite chilled. A lot of people think, you must go get on it straight away. No, I don't, because I don't want a life that's like that. I've done enough of it, and I can get plenty of done later. I'm a night owl when it comes to productivity with work. So the start of my day is like 98% about getting the children out of bed, having breakfast as a family, helping them, discussing stuff with them, being social, sitting together, and then maybe taking them to school or something like that. And then it's planning the day. In there, I will check in with my team or what's going on if stuff's happened with my phone, but that's calculated time. What I don't do is try and do the two at the same time. So I'm not making breakfast and sitting with them, but like on my phone and things like that. No. The only time I might be on my phone at the breakfast table is to put yet another Disney princess tune on the stereo for the girls. But otherwise, it's wholly family time. For me, that gets me in a really good place because I feel great about things. It reminds me of how lucky I am that I'm in a place that I can do it, because I used to not be able to do it. Remember, I would just be working, and I've had at the very start of the day very healthy thing happen. I feel like if the rest of the day went down, I've spent some great quality time with my family, and that I think that matters to me. But when I start, I will often be in my office well before 9, and it will be the when to do list, and it's the CEL approach. So CEL stands for customer / cash, essential, and lines of work / lines of focus. So this is how I decide what things go on my when to do list in terms of its order. So the tasks I prioritize in my day, as in what I call most important, are ones related to acquisition or retention, but mostly acquisition of new customers or generation of cash. So if I have emails, and what some of them are related to generating new customers, they would be of a higher importance than sending in, an email to my accountant. The second level is, it may seem counterintuitive, it's essential tasks. So stuff that really can't be put off and needs to be done. If I have to put out some fire or speak to someone or something like that, or I have a deadline or something, it has to wait. It's really hard to do because you're like, oh my God, there's an emotional reaction. So the company I'm seeing on Tuesday, right, in Borough Market area, if the CEO was to email me asking me something, emotionally, my brain would say, check that notification, or it's from an important person. It's an essential task probably, but it sits underneath generating of new customers. It's a weird thing. People wouldn't do it that way, but I force yourself to decide to not be like emotionally led and be led by things that are going to grow the business. So then after essential tasks, stuff that has to get done, it's lines of work and lines of focus. What that means is tasks that are related to my business, my line of work. And lines of focus. We talked about long and short-term goals in a little while back. Lines of focus are the focus point for today or for this week or for right now. So if I'm building this Slack page or doing a podcast or something, it will be tasks around that. Anything else only comes afterwards if I was to have the time, okay? And if I put stuff off long enough, eventually what will happen? It becomes an essential task, right? So then it gets its priority. It's amazing how many things just don't need doing. Many things they will keep, but you're emotionally attached to certain things. Sometimes you're more emotionally attached to a crappy little task that doesn't have any impact because of the person that task represents, right? That you have that kind of emotional accountability with. And there are more important tasks that don't hold that kind of emotional accountability to you, but that are actually worth doing because they're things that are going to move you forward. So CL is really effective. The other thing I'd say is I do divide the day into 4. So I have quarters. They're not exact quarters, they're kind of quarters. And in the main, the first quarter is along the lines of maintenance and routine and things like that to make sure that the business is running as it should. But the second, third, and fourth quarter are predominantly, with CEL in mind, are predominantly new business and business development things. So the fun stuff, right? So the maintenance things kind of come a bit earlier. So you have to kind of navigate through those two approaches. But that's how I keep the day tight.
Yes, that's quite similar to that CEL, the ABCD technique that Brian Tracy talks about. And
Okay.
Yeah, it's very similar to that. That's something I try and do, almost like giving things more importance. A's more important, B's least. Yeah.
You know,
and
if you use your time right, you can get like an immense amount of stuff done. But it's amazing how if you don't plan, the day will pass and it's just like, I've done nothing. And then you feel bad about your day and you have to pick up the pieces the next day.
Yeah. That's quite interesting, because it's always interesting to know how they start off the day as well, because lots of people have pretty bad routines, especially in the morning, like you're saying, jumping right on the phone.
Yeah, it will keep. I don't think there's ever been really a mess. Like, I've got an email I have to deal with after this, and it's really important, but it will keep. It's like, it's not like if I don't do it right now, the world's going to stop turning. It's like, get it done today, no problem.
Yeah.
But so the problem is that we're led by emotion. It's the same as when your phone rings with a notification. I've got to answer that WhatsApp. What is it? No WhatsApp's ever been that important that it wouldn't keep for a bit.
Yeah. I'll say. Yeah.
I was going to say,
I've actually got
it's worth doing it with emails and things like that. Like, I'll have a set time for checking an email. Otherwise, don't look at them. Don't need to.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have a tip for everyone listening as well, is switch all your notifications off on your phone, because they're not that urgent. If someone needs you, they'll call you. And if that person who is important, that they need to have contact you, give them your mobile number, switch all notifications off, and plan things. Yeah, I agree with that.
Or get used to not kind of dealing with all of your notifications first. Mm-hmm. The moment I'm now used to opening my phone, having a screen full of notifications, and going, I'll open the phone, I'll ignore all that for a second, and I'll go and do the thing I want to do, then I'll close it. And there's bits of your brain firing away going, but there's that guy who's written something, or, oh, someone liked, what was the post that they just liked? Or, oh, that's a nice message, I wonder what they said. Not interested now. There's go and earn it, go and do something valuable. Then you get your time to indulge in vanity stuff. So
yeah, it's very difficult, like you're saying, to bypass that. It's dopamine that you get every time you see those red dots on your Facebook notifications. You click on that and open it.
But do you know what I feel that this isn't to try and be snobby about it, but I think if you can ask yourself, well, who's controlling who here?
Yeah.
Am I controlling the notifications? Am I in charge, or are they controlling me? And when you look at it like that and you say to yourself, do you know what? They are totally in control of me.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make you feel weak?
Yeah.
And if it makes you feel weak, so do you know what? They get my attention when I decide. Mm-hmm. And that's just how it needs to be. Otherwise, it's like you're being led. But it's the same with TV. It's the same with anything. It's like you're being led. You're a human person in control of your own life. You're being led by some sound. And it's because it's so well ingrained in our culture. Yeah, but it's like, come on, man. And grow up and be in charge of your life. And that includes stuff on your phone like that. It's a big game changer when you realize that it's the same with being emotional about stuff, or complaining, or wallowing rather than just moving on. It's like, why? I know we're human, we have to deal with the emotions like dopamine and stress and things like that, but why would you bother complaining? Because you eventually have to go and get on with it anyway. So bypass it. Don't be under control. Be the person in control instead. I think I prefer it that way, because then I feel like I'm going to let myself be emotional if I need to, but otherwise just get on with it.
Yeah. I think I've asked a lot of questions. Probably one last question. I was reading one of your blog posts where you said, without a connection to the prospect, you're not getting out of that meeting with a sale. And you mentioned that building rapport is very important for making that happen. How do you build rapport?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I think you need to put that on a pedestal, rapport and connection, light year ahead of trying to get your sale. I know you want the sale emotionally, again, it's important for you, but building the rapport is all about the person you're speaking to, not about you. If you can be a facilitator of a conversation and get that rapport going, then you're going to be in a very good place. How to build it needs an awareness of two types of rapport, or another word for rapport could be value as well.
Okay.
And if I give you in a business scenario, there is emotional rapport and emotional value, or social rapport, and it's the same kind of thing. And then there's practical and business rapport and value. So what happens is when people, for instance, make a cold call, right, on the phone, or meet someone for the first time in a business meeting, what they want the prospect to do is suddenly go, "Thanks so much for calling. How are you? It's so lovely to hear, from you as a completely unsolicited phone call. Let's have a lovely chat." Because emotionally what you want is for that person to accept you socially. But the reality is that doesn't happen. The guy's busy. And so they're going to say, "Look, could you get to the point? What is it you need?" And then that puts you on the back foot because you think, "Oh no, I'm not being socially accepted here. I feel bad." So we want the social rapport, right?
Yes.
But you're not going to get it till later. Usually, one person in 200 is just generally effusive when you pick up the phone to them, and they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, "Oh, all right, well, I'm good." And you've got your social rapport. You will need it to close your sale. The person's gonna want to like you so that they trust you. They will invest in you or your product. But what you have to do first is create a practical rapport. So to build rapport in a fail-safe way, it's to start with offering value on a business and practical level. So if you offer that first, so a value proposition, you get to the point, you talk about what it is, you talk about how that person can win and explain, that you'd like to explain how that works. If you give them value, something intriguing, stimulating, interesting, that's going to make them feel, like lean in basically, but on a practical level or on a business level, that person will respect you and then continue listening. That is your foundation for then building social rapport later. It's amazing because the more someone likes the proposition you have, the more they like you socially. The more they buy into the practical offering you have, the more they're like, "He's a good guy," and the barriers will come down and they'll start being a little bit more open. So being aware of the guy or girl you've got on the phone and their state is essential. If they're all happy-go-lucky, go for it. You've got your social rapport, you can build that straight away, okay? But typically, if that's not the case, you need to give them practical value first. Both are important, okay? But, the study show that probably 10% of the reason why someone buys something is your product, 30% is sales technique, and 60% is connection. So you have to focus on the rapport building. But if I give you an example, Jeffrey Garrett is the dean of Wharton University. So he runs at this University of Pennsylvania. And he obviously is very well respected. He is very kind of popular, not popular, he's very kind of well distributed online, as well as being a great academic. On LinkedIn, he publishes stuff all the time. So you have people climbing over each other to try and get his audience. So in order to get him to respond to my emails, rather than going, "Hey, Mr. Garrett, I'm a really big fan of yours. I think you're amazing. And, would you mind answering some questions?" Because that's how everyone else will approach, and he hasn't got the time for it. I positioned my email with some practical value. Now, the practical value for him was intellectual. So what I did was I went and read a load of his papers from like 4 years ago, and I didn't challenge so much as just asked a question. I was like, "Do you still feel this is true?" Whatever it was I wrote. And because I gave him value on an intellectual level, it was way more stimulating than someone just trying to be his friend to get something from him. So it opened up a conversation, and I'm not saying I'm his best friend, but from that he then responded, and he probably wouldn't remember me at all, but the point is that he responded, and I asked him other questions, and I could build from there. Practical value is fail safe, because it doesn't matter how much of an idiot you are. If it's valuable and useful, you'll still use it. You see what I mean? So that's kind of that's the methodology, really.
Yeah. And it's similar when I think about it, it's the sort of funnel, if you would say, in content marketing. When you're very active on social media like myself, it's because we understand that when we are putting out, it's not very rarely are we right hooking. We're always jabbing, and we're giving free value up front. So that's kind of a way in terms of applying that rapport in a almost non-direct one-to-one situation, doing it in a marketing sense. It's content marketing, giving free valuable content and tips up front, and that builds that rapport and a different.
I mean, look, practical tips get you respect, okay? And the thing is, if you put out enough practical tips, there will be always people who are like, that guy's an idiot, I don't like him. Okay, fine. But then there's people who do like the tips, and so they view in a positive world, and of course then they'll allow themselves to start liking you as a persona, and then the social rapport comes from them. I think you can't really get sales without both of those things. The reason why someone like Tai Lopez is still super successful is because a lot of people who think for everyone who thinks he's an idiot, there's plenty of people who think he's great. You know, they just think they're bought in by the emotion or whatever it might be. He gives practical value to everyone, but it turns a load of people off. And some people are like, oh, I really like this guy. He's amazing. And I think, that's all that matters. You will get there eventually, but you've got to start with giving something that will at least get you some respect, so that people start paying attention. Then they'll decide subconsciously if they like you or not, and that's eventually what will get you the deal.
So it's the report in a way is actually getting their attention through valuable advice to
a degree, but it's also just resonating, and getting on with someone and being on the same wavelength. The reason why I went to spend some time last night with these two blokes instead of someone else is that we get on well. You don't have to try hard. It wasn't like an interview. It's just like we just had a laugh, and it was relaxing, and so the rapport was there because we resonated. We have common interests and things like that, and I think that once you've got them opening up because you've got the practical value going through, and so they want to pay attention to you, at least on a professional level, that gives you the opportunity to then, if there was an opportunity, maybe crack that joke or to make a funny comment, and then it helps kind of lower the barriers, and then you do resonate, and that's really where the true rapport is that you uncover things that make that person like you more.
It's like I always think of things when I approach anyone or meet any clients. I'm always thinking about the personality types of the 4 different personality types. I'm always thinking about that now, and I understand how to speak to different clients and different people differently. If they're not like me, you need to adjust slightly to get to build that rapport, like you're saying.
I think the thing is that I think it's a very good approach to start with, but I think that some people do overthink it. To the point that they don't see the wood for the trees. What you got to understand is, certainly by, say, the age of even 15 years old or so, you're a master of the art of communication by then. The subtleties that you don't even realize are constantly being picked up on by the subconscious. And I think allowing yourself just to take it all in and go with it means that usually, unless sadly some people don't have that part of their brain working in the same way as most of us, but if you have that kind of if you allow yourself just to kind of take in the person, your brain will actually work out the kind of personality type. It won't pop out and go, oh, this person's practical, or this person's action. It will know what to do.
So you're not walking into the meeting thinking of all these strategies first. You're just kind of walking in, getting a feel, and then having empathy.
And I build rapport now in the moment through empathy, through just being there in the moment, rather than trying to overthink it. I'm interested in the person, and I take it in and go in with no expectations other than that you want to get to know the person and work it out in the moment, and trust and rely on your instincts, because they're usually right. It's interesting to know the theory, I get that, and it then can help for sales technique, but in terms of building rapport, you in your natural state will usually kind of mirror, match, or even lead that kind of person's personality, and you'll tune in.
Yeah. And there, like you're saying, there's some people that miss empathy. Usually, if you're missing it entirely, it's usually psychopaths. But there's people who lack in empathy, and they might need a salesperson to go out and do those meetings.
Definitely. Some people are built that way. And this is the thing. Sometimes you need to recognize that it's just not you. You've got your great idea and great product. Go get a partner and they can do the selling for you. Maybe you take a haircut on the amount of profit you make, but at least it's getting sold now, right? That's the thing.
Yeah, I've seen that in action with meetings I've had where I'm meeting someone, but they've brought their salesperson in and he done the most of the talking, and it works well. It's just knowing your strengths.
You're playing to your strengths then, And I remember once going to a meeting and I brought a tech guy with me because I was selling something, but I needed the guy there for that deep information. If we'd switched roles, it probably wouldn't have worked.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, I think I've asked a lot of questions. So if anyone's interested in the courses we talked about, like we said, there's 15% discount off of Richard's 2 courses on therichardmoore.com. And one of the links, I've created a bit.ly link, which is bit.ly, bit.ly/monetize you. And the other one is Basics of Sales, where you give a lot more sales tips in there, and that's bit.ly again /basics of sales.
So just in 2 sentences, monetize you is generating income from knowledge you already have, and it's literally the words to use and how to do it in terms of in the first week or 2 weeks getting clients that will pay you, or people, a subscription or a group or whatever, to based on knowledge or a guilty pleasure or a hobby you have, leveraging that rather than learning Forex or learning social media algorithms. So you can say stuff you already know about. It's leveraging that and generating, it's simply what to say and how to close the people in a really good way. And Basics of Sales is almost 20 years of selling and coaching people and being paid by up to 9-figure businesses in London to coach their sales teams. The basics of it, like we've just talked about to a degree. So rapport building, objections, questioning, closing, mindset, all that stuff, that is just in a nutshell. So both courses I'm very proud of. And so I presume you put the links in underneath.
Yes, I'll have some show notes. I'm going to be working on show notes for this podcast now, so they'll be available on my website, onlinemarketingconsultant.co.uk, on the blog, so you can check that out. I'll send anyone that's interested, ask any questions on YouTube in the comments, and send direct message to me. So thanks for sharing everything, Richard. If you were to summarize the main takeaway from this podcast, how would you say that in one sentence?
Start without overthinking. I think I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, that's pretty to the point. Yeah, perfect. Thanks a lot for coming on, Richard. Thanks for your time and all your advice. I've learned a ton. I've got notes and notes here myself. So,
no, it's a pleasure. And you've got a great group. Not enough people do this kind of thing. And for 800 people to be in this group and be so engaged is a really good sign. So thanks for having me on. And I hope it's of use to the people who watch this or listen.
Thanks a lot, Richard.
Good.